Becoming a Police Officer in America Today by Matthew Herbert. In this video, I am going to discuss the following: the salary and different types of police divisions, the training you must go through after being hired, the challenges and obstacles of being a police officer, and why I chose to become a police officer. Salary and police divisions. The salary of police officers in New Jersey range from $50,000 to over $100,000 a year, depending on years of experience and promotion. It also depends on the department. Each department is different when it comes to their top salary. Some departments are pay well over $100,000 a year. Some can be $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. It really depends on the department and the area you choose to work in. It is also important to remember that agencies vary when it comes to the amount of steps or years it will take the officer to reach top salary. For instance, when I got hired, it took me 5 steps or 5 years to reach my top salary. There are departments out there that can be 8 years, 8 steps, 9 years, 9 steps, 10 years, 10 steps. It really depends on the specific department you're applying for. Also keep in mind, if you excel and decide to try and get promoted and succeed, with each rank you will make more money. So a sergeant makes more than a patrolman, a lieutenant makes more than a sergeant, and so on and so on. 1 in every 400 members of the U.S. population are law enforcement officers, which really is not that many. And it's also important to remember when applying to become a police officer, it is important to stay out of trouble and just conduct yourself in a professional manner at all times. Law enforcement officers include city police departments or municipal police departments, the state police or state troopers, and sheriff's officers and deputies. City or town police departments their jurisdiction is limited to the city or town boundaries. Those departments, they enforce state law as well as city or township ordinances and guidelines. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, salaries vary depending on the individual city. State troopers and the state police, they're responsible for patrolling the major highways and roadways throughout the state. They also provide law enforcement services for the jurisdictions that do not have their own police departments. They also benefit from the larger state budgets that support specialized programming. Sheriff officers and deputies. Their responsibilities include providing security for the county courthouses, facilitating prisoner transports in between local law enforcement agencies, as well as managing the jails. Keep in mind, sheriff officers, just as do regular police officers, have full law enforcement authority and police powers. It does, however, vary depending on the state. For instance, in New Jersey, especially in the county I work, the sheriff's officer's primary function is to provide security in the courthouse, whereas if you go down south or out west, sheriff's officers may be the actual department, the county police department, and be responsible for every municipality inside the county and provide full policing, full police services such as radio patrol, detective bureau, narcotics enforcement, community policing, and so on and so forth. Training and being hired. No matter where it is that you decide to apply to work as a police officer, chances are you're going to have to take some sort of test. In my case, I had to take the Civil Service Commission test. Upon taking and passing that test and completing all the requisites of my department, I was hired and then sent to a police academy. At the police academy, you learn the basic tools and receive the basic training needed to become a police officer. To become a police officer in New Jersey, you must first take an entry-level law enforcement examination. After completing and passing that exam, you'll be given a score and then ranked by your score for whatever agency you're applying for. For instance, if 100 people take the test for a specific agency, there will be a ranking from 1 to 100 based on the scores received. Also, in New Jersey, civil service departments have a veterans preference, which means that the police departments must first hire from veterans and then go to the remainder of the candidates. You will be hired if you meet all the requirements by your department. Police Academy. Once you are hired by your agency, they will tell you where and when to report to the police academy. Every police officer must first complete the police academy before patrolling the street. It's required by law. The police academy can range anywhere from 6 to 9 months depending on the department. In the first weeks of training, now this is after the police academy, you're already graduated, you're a police officer, you're ready to go hit the streets and make a difference. You will first receive more training from your agency where they reiterate what you learned in the police academy. You also do ride-alongs with a more experienced officer, also known as a field training officer, and experience the different types of calls that police officers encounter on a daily basis. And this training officer will guide you in how to successfully react and handle all these different types of calls to service. You will also have to rotate your schedule and shifts in order to experience the different shifts of your agency. My agency has a day shift, an afternoon shift, and a midnight shift. Each shift is different with the types of calls to service, the types of crimes committed, the types of individuals you'll interact with. So it's important that new police officers experience every shift prior to going out on their own. Also, you'll be evaluated. You'll be evaluated by your field training officer, your peers, as well as supervisors. It's important. This is also important because they want to make sure you can correctly carry out your duty as a police officer. Challenges and obstacles of being a police officer. Police officers typically do not work the average Monday to Friday 9 to 5 schedule. Keep in mind that the police departments are 24-hour agencies and there must always be someone working to answer calls to service from the public. So you may be stuck working the midnight shift, which can be 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. for many, many years, especially for newer officers. Keep in mind also that police departments have to work during the weekends, the holidays, so you may not get to spend every holiday with your family. Odds are you won't. And now keep in mind the risks of the job. You know, there's gun violence, exposure to diseases, drug exposure. You can be pricked by a needle, and also it's a job where a high percentage of police officers wind up having heart attacks or being obese due to the shift work, the not finding time to exercise, the eating meals on the fly, eating fast food. So there's a lot of risks that come with this job. Excessive force. In Albert and Smith's How Reasonable is the Reasonable Man? Police and Excessive Force, it describes the unclear and confusion of what is understood as reasonable behavior and what should and should not be considered excessive force. This poses a problem for the officer and for the public, as both are trying their best to provide a safe community for all. Now, just as every police officer has a right to protect himself, every citizen has the right not to be abused by a police officer. Rioting and protests. In recent history, we have seen some controversial rioting and protests for and against police officers across the country. For example, Ferguson, Missouri saw days of destruction and violence against the city in protest of police officers for the shooting death of Michael Brown. Wolf and Nix describe policing after this incident, the Ferguson effect, which claims that there is an unwillingness in police officers to partner with the community members and therefore become less engaged. After much research and statistics, Wolf and Nix have concluded that regardless of whether the media or citizens challenge the legitimacy of the police, it is unlikely that the police will stop responding to violent crimes. Why did I become a police officer? Since I can remember, I've wanted to be a police officer. Playing cops and robbers as a kid, I never wanted to be the robber. I always wanted to be the cop. I remember watching shows like Chips and Matlock where I'd always root for the good guys. I also enjoy helping people and making a difference. I take pride in serving my community, and I honestly feel like I make a difference every day.